My hand was shaking when I pressed send on that email. Subject line: cancel everything. The venue manager called back in 30 seconds, his voice panicked. Mrs. Davidson, the wedding is tomorrow. We can't. I cut him off. I'm the one who paid. Cancel it. Then I hung up. My son had sent me a text just 3 hours earlier. I'd read it so many times the screen had dimmed twice from my stillness. Change of plans, Mom. You can't come tomorrow. It's only for close family. Close family. I stared at those 2 words until they blurred. I'd written the check for $150,000. I'd chosen every flower, every napkin, every song. I'd held his hand through his father's funeral and put him through college on a waitress salary. And now I wasn't close family. The phone buzzed again. My son. Mom, what did you just do? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to my bedroom and pulled out my old suitcase, the one I hadn't used since before he was born. Because if I wasn't invited to his wedding, then I wasn't staying for the aftermath either. I'm Margaret, and before I tell you the rest of this story, I need to take a breath. Because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my own son. But first, tell me, where are you listening from? I always read the comments. And if stories like this touch your heart, subscribe. I have so many more to share with you. It started 6 months earlier, on a Tuesday morning in April. I was washing dishes when my son called. Not a text, an actual phone call. That alone made my heart jump. Mom, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I'm getting married. I dropped the sponge into the sink. Water splashed onto my shirt, but I didn't care. Oh, sweetheart, I whispered. That's wonderful. He told me her name was Vanessa. They'd been dating for 8 months. She worked in marketing, came from a good family. That's how he said it, like it mattered. I asked when I could meet her. He paused. Soon, Mom. We're still figuring things out. I didn't push. I never pushed. Not since his father died and I became the parent he tolerated instead of the one he called. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea I didn't drink. I looked at the photo of my late husband on the wall, the one where he's holding baby Michael, both of them laughing. He's getting married, I whispered to the picture. Our boy. My voice cracked. For a moment, I let myself imagine it. Walking him down the aisle, seeing him happy, holding grandchildren someday. Then I wiped my eyes and went to bed. 2 weeks later, Michael called again. This time, his voice was different, tighter, more formal. Mom, we need to talk about the wedding. I sat down slowly. Okay. He cleared his throat. Vanessa's family was going to pay for everything, but there were some complications. Her father's business had a setback. I waited. So we're wondering if you could help? Help. That word sat between us like a stone. I looked around my small living room. The couch I'd had for 12 years. The TV I'd bought on sale. The walls I hadn't repainted since 2008. I'd been saving for years. Not for anything specific. Just saving. In case Michael ever needed me. How much? I asked quietly. He hesitated. 50,000 would be really helpful. 50,000. I closed my eyes. My savings account had $170,000. Everything I'd scraped together from decades of double shifts, tips, careful budgeting. My retirement, my safety net, my proof that I'd survived after losing my husband. Let me think about it, I said. Mom, the venue needs a deposit by Friday. His voice had an edge now, not quite impatient, but close. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, and hung up before he could respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, doing math in my head. If I gave him 50,000, I'd still have enough to live on. Barely. If something happened, if I got sick, if the roof needed repairs, if the car died, I'd be in trouble. But this was my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after his father's heart attack, the boy I'd worked 3 jobs to put through state college. The next morning, I called him back. I'll do it, I said. But I need to be involved in the planning. I want to help choose things. Silence. Then, Mom, Vanessa's really particular about her vision. Her vision, not their vision. Hers. I gripped the phone tighter. Michael, If I'm paying for half the wedding, I think I should have some input. Another pause. Okay. Yeah. Of course. I'll talk to her. But he didn't talk to her. Or if he did, it didn't matter. A week later, Vanessa's mother called me. Not Vanessa. Her mother. Margaret, hello, I'm Diane, Vanessa's mom. Her voice was bright and sharp like glass. Michael said you're contributing to the wedding. How generous. Contributing, as if I were donating to a charity. I wanted to discuss the budget with you, I said carefully. She laughed. Oh, don't worry about the details. We've got it all under control. Under control meant I didn't hear from them for 3 weeks. Then I got an email from a wedding planner I'd never met. Subject, payment due. The email listed vendors, dates, amounts. Flowers, $8,000. Band, $12,000. Photography, $15,000. Catering, $45,000. The total at the bottom made my stomach drop, $150,000. Not 50, 150. I called Michael immediately. You said 50,000. I know, Mom, but Vanessa's family. Pulled out? My voice was shaking now. Completely? He didn't answer right away. Then quietly, her dad's company is going through bankruptcy. They can't contribute anything. I sat down on the edge of my bed. My mouth was dry. So you want me to pay for the entire wedding? Mom, I know it's a lot. It's everything, Michael. It's my entire savings. I'll pay you back, he said quickly. Once I get promoted, once we're settled. But I knew better. I'd heard that promise before. Still, I said yes. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted him to need me. Maybe because I thought if I did this one big thing, he'd see me differently. Or maybe I was just tired of being the mother who only mattered when there was no one else to call. I wired the money the next day. All of it. $150,000. My hands were trembling so badly I had to type my password 3 times. After that, I barely heard from him. I'd text, "How's the planning going?" He'd reply 6 hours later. "Good," I'd ask. "When can I see the venue?" He'd say, "We'll send photos." But no photos came. No calls. No invitations to cake tastings or dress fittings. I was funding a wedding I wasn't part of. One night, I drove past the venue, a luxury estate an hour outside the city. I didn't go in. I just sat in my car in the parking lot and looked at the lights. 3 months before the wedding, Vanessa finally called me. Not to ask my opinion, to tell me what to wear. "We're doing a formal dress code," she said. Her voice was sweet, but it didn't reach her eyes. I could tell even over the phone. "So please, nothing too bright or attention-grabbing. We want the focus on us." I swallowed. "Of course. And Margaret?" She paused. "Thank you. For everything. It means a lot." But the way she said it made me feel like a vendor. Like someone who'd provided a service. I bought a dress anyway. Navy blue, simple, elegant. I hung it in my closet and looked at it every morning. It was the only proof I had that I was invited. I didn't get a formal invitation in the mail. I asked Michael about it. "Oh, we're doing mostly digital invites," he said. To save money. Save money. After I'd paid $150,000? I didn't say anything. I just waited for the digital invite to arrive. It never did. 2 weeks before the wedding, I tried to visit. I called Michael and said I wanted to take him and Vanessa to dinner. "I'd love to get to know her better," I said. He hesitated. "We're really busy right now, Mom." "Just one dinner," I pressed. "Please." Finally, he agreed. We met at a chain restaurant near their apartment. Vanessa wore sunglasses the entire time, even indoors. She barely looked at me. When I asked about the wedding, she smiled tightly and said, "It's going to be perfect." Michael spent the whole meal on his phone. I watched him scroll through something. Photos, maybe, or messages. His face was blank. I reached across the table and touched his hand. "Are you happy, sweetheart?" He looked up, surprised. "Yeah, of course." But his eyes slid away from mine. Vanessa excused herself to the bathroom. The moment she was gone, I leaned closer. "Michael, if something's wrong..." "Nothing's wrong, Mom." His voice was cold, final. "Everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. I could feel it. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the dark. I thought about my husband. How he used to say, Margaret, you can't fix everything. But I always tried anyway. I thought about the $150,000, the empty savings account, the roof that was starting to leak, the car that was making a strange noise. I thought about my son, who used to crawl into my lap when he had nightmares, who used to say, "I love you, Mama," every single night. The week before the wedding, I got a text from the wedding planner. "Final head count needed. Please confirm your +1. I stared at the message. I hadn't even thought about a +1. I didn't have anyone to bring. My husband was dead. My sister lived in Oregon. My friends from work were busy or too old to travel. I typed back, "Just me." Her response came instantly. "Perfect. See you Saturday." On Friday afternoon, I pressed my navy dress. I polished my shoes. I wrapped the gift I'd bought, a set of crystal glasses that cost more than I wanted to admit. I was packing my overnight bag when my phone buzzed. A text from Michael. My heart lifted. Maybe he was calling to check in, to tell me he loved me, to say he couldn't wait to see me tomorrow. I opened the message. "Change of plans, Mom. You can't come tomorrow. It's only for close family." I read it 3 times. 4. 5. The words didn't change. Close family. I walked to the mirror and looked at myself. Navy dress, gray hair I'd had done at the salon that morning, hands that had worked themselves raw to raise him, and I wasn't close family. I sat down on the edge of my bed, still holding the phone. My chest felt tight. My throat burned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call him. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I stood up. I walked to my desk. I opened my laptop, and I sent that email. Cancel everything. Because if I wasn't family, then they could have their wedding without my money too. The venue manager called, then the florist, then the caterer. Each one panicked, confused, begging. I told them all the same thing. I'm the one who paid. Cancel it. My voice never wavered, not once. By the time the sun set, the wedding was gone. My phone exploded. Texts, calls, voicemails. Michael. "Mom, what did you do?" Vanessa. "You're ruining everything." Diane, Vanessa's mother. "This is unbelievably selfish." I didn't answer any of them. I turned my phone off, pulled out my old suitcase, and started packing, because I'd made my decision. If they didn't want me at the wedding, then they wouldn't find me after it either. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. I packed slowly. Not because I had a lot to take. I didn't. But because each item I folded felt like closing a chapter. My favorite sweater. The photo album from Michael's childhood. A jewelry box my husband gave me on our 10th anniversary. I left the navy dress hanging in the closet. Let it stay there. A ghost of the mother I'd tried to be. By midnight, my suitcase was full and my house felt emptier than it ever had. I sat on my bed and turned my phone back on. 147 notifications. I scrolled through them without opening any. Michael had called 16 times. Vanessa, 12. Diane had sent a long text that started with, "How dare you," and ended with, "lawyer." I deleted it without reading the middle. Then I saw one message that made me pause. From a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Davidson, this is Rebecca from Clearwater Realty. Saw your home listed online. Still available?" Listed online? I frowned and opened my laptop. I hadn't listed my house. But there it was. My address, my living room, my kitchen. Posted 3 hours ago by an agency I'd never heard of. The description read, "Charming starter home, motivated seller, immediate occupancy available." My hands went cold. I hadn't done this, which meant someone else had. I called the number. Rebecca answered on the first ring, chipper and eager. "Is this about the Davidson property?" "This is Margaret Davidson," I said slowly. "And I didn't list this house." Silence. Then carefully, "I'm sorry, but we received all the documentation this morning. Power of attorney, signed seller agreement, everything. Power of attorney." My stomach turned. "From who?" "Michael Davidson, your son. He said you were moving into assisted living and needed to sell quickly." I hung up. My hand was shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Michael had tried to sell my house. without telling me, without asking. I stared at the wall, my mind racing. When had he gotten power of attorney? Then I remembered, 2 years ago, right after his father died. I'd been so overwhelmed with grief, with funeral arrangements, with bills. Michael said it would be easier if he could help manage things. Just in case, Mom. Just to make it simpler. I'd signed the papers in a daze, trusting him, trusting my son. I called him. This time, he answered. Mom, thank God. You tried to sell my house. Silence. Long, thick silence. Then, quietly, How did I find out? My voice cracked. How did I find out my son was stealing from me? I wasn't stealing. What, Michael? You were what? He exhaled hard. We need the money, okay? The wedding's tomorrow and you just canceled everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done, I said. My voice was steady now. Cold. I stopped paying for people who don't want me. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I waited. He didn't answer. In the background, I heard Vanessa's voice, sharp and urgent. Is that her? Let me talk to her. Michael must have handed her the phone because suddenly I was hearing Vanessa for the first time without the sugarcoating. You selfish, bitter old woman. I hung up. My whole body was shaking now. Not with fear, with rage. With something deeper than rage. Betrayal so complete it felt like my bones were breaking. I looked around my small living room. This house. I'd bought it with my husband 32 years ago. We'd painted every room ourselves. We'd built the garden out back. Michael had taken his first steps on this floor. And my son had tried to sell it out from under me to pay for a wedding I wasn't invited to. I opened my laptop again and started searching. Apartments for rent, senior living communities. Anything far away. Somewhere they'd never think to look. I found a small place in Vermont, a cottage near a lake, month-to-month lease, available immediately. I called the landlord. He was an older man with a kind voice. It's quiet up here, he warned me. Not much to do. That's exactly what I need, I said. I gave him my card number and signed the lease digitally. First month paid. Keys waiting. The next morning, I called a real estate lawyer. I explained everything. The power of attorney, the attempted sale, the canceled wedding. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, We can revoke the power of attorney immediately. And if he listed the house without your explicit consent, that's fraud. I don't want to press charges, I said quickly. I just want him to never be able to do this again. Understood, she said. I'll file the paperwork today. Then I called the bank. I moved what little money I had left into a new account. One Michael didn't know about. The banker asked if everything was all right. I smiled into the phone. It will be. I scheduled the utilities to be shut off in 2 weeks. I arranged for my mail to be forwarded to a P.O. box in Vermont. I canceled my phone plan and bought a prepaid cell with a new number. By noon, I'd erased myself from every system my son could use to find me. I spent the afternoon packing my car. It was a 20-year-old Honda, but it ran. I filled the trunk with boxes, the back seat with bags. I left the furniture, all of it. The couch, the table, the bed. Let the bank deal with it when I stopped paying the mortgage. I wasn't coming back. I was 71 years old and I was starting over. And it felt like the first honest thing I'd done in years. I left one thing on the kitchen counter. A note, short, simple. You wanted close family. Now you have it. Don't look for me. I drove away at sunset. I didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the street, not at the town where I'd lived my whole life. I drove north through the dark, the radio off, the windows down. The air smelled like rain and freedom. My phone, the old one, the one I'd left on the counter next to the note, buzzed once, twice, 50 times. I imagined Michael reading that note, imagined the panic, the calls, the realization. Good. I stopped at a rest area around midnight, sat in my car and ate a gas station sandwich. A truck driver at the next pump asked if I was okay. Better than I've been in a long time, I said. And I meant it. He nodded like he understood and drove away. I closed my eyes and let myself cry for the first time since this all started. Not sad tears. Angry ones. Relieved ones. The kind that come when you finally stop pretending. I reached Vermont 2 days later. The cottage was small. 1 bedroom, a kitchen barely bigger than a closet, a porch overlooking the lake. It was perfect. The landlord, George, helped me carry my boxes inside. "Running from something?" he asked, but not unkindly. I looked at him. "Running toward something." He smiled. "Good for you." He handed me the keys and left me alone. I sat on the porch that night and watched the water. For the first time in 6 months, I felt like I could breathe. The first week was strange. Quiet in a way I wasn't used to. No phone calls, no texts, no one asking for anything. I unpacked slowly, arranging my small life in this small space. I bought groceries. I learned the roads. I walked by the lake every morning and felt the weight I'd been carrying start to lift. But at night, in the dark, I still thought about Michael, about the little boy who'd hugged me so tight after his father died, about the man who'd tried to sell my house. What would you have done in my place? I still ask myself that sometimes. One afternoon, about 10 days after I arrived, I was sitting on the porch when a car pulled up. My heart stopped. I didn't recognize it. A woman stepped out, mid-50s, carrying a casserole dish. "Hi," she called. "I'm Linda. I live 3 cottages down. George said someone new moved in." She smiled. It was genuine, warm. "I thought you might like a meal." I took the dish, still wary. "Thank you." "No pressure," she said. "But if you want company sometime, I'm around." Company. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed that word. We had coffee the next day, then the day after. Linda didn't ask questions. She just talked about the lake, the town, the best place to buy fresh bread. Slowly, I started to share. Not everything, but enough. "I left my family," I said one morning. She nodded. "Sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do." I looked at her. "You think so?" She squeezed my hand. "I know so." 3 weeks in, I got a letter. Forwarded from the P.O. box. No return address. I opened it carefully. Inside was a check for $150,000 and a note in handwriting I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Davidson, my name is Vanessa. I'm writing because Michael won't. The wedding didn't happen. Not just because you canceled it, but because I called it off. I found out some things I should have known sooner." My hands were shaking. I kept reading. "Michael told me you were controlling, that you tried to manipulate him, that you refused to help unless you could run everything. But then I saw the bank records. I saw how much you gave, how much he lied about, how much he kept for himself." I stopped. "Read that line again. Kept for himself." Vanessa's letter continued. "He didn't spend $150,000 on our wedding. He spent maybe $80,000. The rest, I don't even know where it went. Debts, maybe. Or things he didn't tell me about." My chest felt tight. When I confronted him, he tried to lie. Then he got angry. Then he admitted it. He said you owed him, that you'd failed him when his father died, that you were too weak, too poor, too... I can't even write the words he used. I realized I didn't know him at all. The letter ended simply. "This check is from my parents. They didn't know what Michael was doing either. It's not enough to fix what he did, but it's something. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I sat on the porch holding that letter for hours. The check felt heavy in my hands. $150,000, my money, returned by a woman who owed me nothing. I thought about Michael, about the lies, about the cruelty, and I thought about my husband, who'd loved our son so much it hurt. What would he say if he were here? I didn't know. I couldn't hear his voice anymore. That's what grief does. It takes the sound of them away first. I didn't cash the check right away. I put it in a drawer and tried to decide what to do. Linda noticed I was quieter than usual. "Something wrong?" she asked over coffee one morning. I told her about the letter, about the money, about everything. She listened, her face serious. When I finished, she said, "What do you want to do?" I shook my head. "I don't know." "Yes, you do," she said gently. "You're just scared to say it." She was right. I was scared, because what I wanted was to forgive him, not because he deserved it, but because I was tired of carrying hate. It was too heavy. I was too old. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It didn't mean going back. It didn't mean pretending it never happened. It meant letting go of the anger so I could finally move forward. I called the lawyer. "I want to set up a trust," I said, "for my son. He can't access it until he's 50, and only if he completes therapy." The lawyer was quiet. Then, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said. "He hurt me. But I don't want to hurt him back. I just want him to fix himself." "All right," she said. "We'll draft the paperwork." I hung up and looked at the lake. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. I thought about the mother I'd been, the one who gave everything, the one who tried so hard to be enough. She was gone now, and in her place was someone new, someone who knew when to hold on and when to let go. That night, I wrote my own letter. To Michael. I didn't mail it. Not yet. But I needed to write it. To say the things I'd never said. "Dear Michael, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I'll ever send it. But I need to say it anyway. You broke my heart. Not because you didn't invite me to your wedding, but because you treated me like I didn't matter. Like everything I gave, everything I sacrificed, was worthless." I paused, pen hovering over paper. "I worked 3 jobs to put you through college. I wore the same coat for 15 years so you could have new shoes. I said no to every vacation, every luxury, every dream, because I wanted you to have more than I did. And you repaid me by stealing from me, by lying to me, by trying to sell my home." My hand was shaking now, but I kept writing. "I want to hate you, but I can't, because you're still my son, and I still remember who you used to be. So I'm giving you one last gift, a trust fund, money you can access when you're older. If you've done the work to become the man I know you can be, not the man you are now, but the man you were before grief and greed changed you. I hope you use it well. I hope you grow. I hope you learn what I had to learn, that love isn't about control or obligation. It's about choice. And I'm choosing to let you go." I signed it simply. Mom. I folded the letter and put it in an envelope. I didn't address it. Not yet. Maybe I'd send it someday. Maybe I wouldn't. But writing it had been enough. I'd said what I needed to say. The rest was up to him. I walked outside and stood on the porch. The stars were out, more than I'd ever seen in the city. I thought about my husband, about the life we'd built, about the son we'd raised, and I whispered into the dark. I did my best. The next morning, I cashed the check. I put half in savings. The other half I used to buy the cottage outright. No more rent. No more landlords. This place was mine. George was stunned when I told him. "You sure?" he asked. "More sure than I've been about anything," I said. He grinned and shook my hand. "Welcome home, Margaret." Home. That word felt strange, but also right. This wasn't where I'd planned to end up. But sometimes the best endings are the ones we don't plan. Linda threw me a small housewarming party. Just her, George, and a few neighbors I'd started to know. We ate casserole and drank cheap wine and laughed about nothing important. At one point, Linda raised her glass. "To Margaret," she said, "the bravest woman I know." I shook my head. "I'm not brave." "Yes, you are," she said firmly. "Brave isn't staying when you should go. It's going when everyone expects you to stay." I felt tears sting my eyes, but I smiled through them. That night, alone in my cottage, I sat on the floor and looked around. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Bought with money I'd earned, filled with things I'd chosen. No one could take it from me. No one could sell it without permission. For the first time in my life, I belonged to myself. I thought about the woman I'd been a month ago, desperate for her son's love, willing to buy it at any cost. I barely recognized her now. I still thought about Michael. That didn't stop, but the thoughts changed. Instead of wondering what I'd done wrong, I wondered what he'd do next. Would he get help? Would he grow? Would he ever understand what he'd lost? I didn't know. And slowly, painfully, I was learning to be okay with not knowing. He wasn't my responsibility anymore. He was his own. And I was mine. That was enough. One evening, about 6 weeks after I'd arrived, My phone rang. The new number. The one only Linda and George knew. I answered cautiously. Hello? Silence. Then, Mom? My breath caught. Michael. How did you— Linda, he said quietly. She's friends with a guy I went to high school with. Small world. I closed my eyes. Of course. Vermont wasn't far enough. Nowhere was. What do you want? I asked. My voice was colder than I meant it to be. I want to talk, he said. In person. I looked out the window at the lake. The sun was setting again, like it did every day. Reliable, constant. Unlike my son. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. Please, Mom. His voice cracked. I know I don't deserve it, but please, just let me say what I need to say. I was quiet for a long time. Then, against every instinct, okay, but not here. I'll meet you in town, tomorrow, 2:00. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. I called Linda. He found me. I know, she said softly. He called me yesterday. Asked if I knew you. I didn't tell him where you lived, Margaret. Just that you were okay. I believed her. He wants to meet. Are you going to? I stared at the ceiling. I think I have to. Then I'm coming with you, Linda said firmly. You're not facing him alone. The next day, Linda and I drove into town. We sat in a small cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus. I ordered coffee I didn't drink. Michael walked in at exactly 2:00. He looked terrible. Thinner. Older. His eyes were red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept in weeks. He saw me and stopped. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then he walked over slowly and sat down. Linda stayed at a table nearby, watching, protecting me. Hi, Mom, he said. His voice was small. I nodded, didn't say anything. He looked down at his hands. I don't know where to start. Then don't, I said. Because I don't think there's anything you can say that will change what you did. He flinched, but he didn't argue. You're right, he said quietly. You're completely right. He stopped, swallowed hard. I was awful. Worse than awful. I was cruel. Yes, I said. You were. He looked up and there were tears in his eyes. Real ones, not the manipulative kind. Vanessa told me she sent you the money, and the letter. I nodded. She's a better person than you deserved. He laughed, but it was bitter. Yeah, she is. He wiped his eyes. I've been seeing a therapist, 3 times a week. She says I have a lot of unresolved stuff. From Dad's death. From feeling like I had to take care of you when I was too young to know how. I felt something twist in my chest. So you're saying this is my fault? No, he said quickly. No, Mom, that's not. He stopped, took a breath, started again. It's not your fault. But it's not connected either. I was angry at you for needing me. For being weak when Dad died. For not being strong enough to handle it alone. And instead of dealing with that anger, I just let it fester. Until it turned into something ugly. I sat back in my chair. Looked at this man who used to be my little boy. So, what do you want from me now? I asked. Forgiveness? He shook his head slowly. I don't think I deserve that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying. That I see what I did. That I'm not asking you to come back or fix me or save me. I'm just telling you I'm sorry. And I understand if that's not enough. We sat in silence. The cafe bustled around us. Someone laughed. A baby cried. Life kept moving. I set up a trust for you, I said finally. His eyes widened. What? You can access it when you're 50. If you've done the work. Therapy, making amends, becoming someone your father would be proud of. His face crumpled. Mom, I don't deserve. I know, I said. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me, so I can let go. He stared at me. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay. He stood up. Thank you. For meeting me. For listening. He gestured helplessly. For everything. I didn't stand. Just looked up at him and said, Goodbye, Michael. He understood. That this wasn't see you later. It was goodbye. Maybe not forever. But for now. For as long as I needed. He turned and walked out. I watched him go. And I didn't cry. Linda came over and sat across from me. "You okay?" she asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Was I okay? My son had broken my heart, stolen from me, lied to me, tried to erase me. But I was sitting in a cafe in Vermont, financially stable, emotionally free, with a friend who cared. I had a home. I had peace. I had myself. "Yeah," I said, surprised by how true it felt. "I think I am." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation with Michael, the way his voice cracked, the tears in his eyes, the weight of his apology. Part of me wanted to believe he'd really change. The other part, the part that had learned to protect herself, knew that wanting wasn't enough. I got up and made tea I didn't drink, sat on the porch and watched the moon paint silver lines across the lake. The water was so still, it looked like glass. Linda came by the next morning without calling first. She took one look at my face and said, "Rough night?" I nodded. She sat down across from me, her coffee mug steaming between her hands. "You want to talk about it?" I shrugged. "I don't know what there is to say." He apologized. I told him about the trust. We said goodbye. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you believe him?" I looked out at the lake. "I want to." "That's not what I asked," she said gently. I sighed. "I don't know. Maybe." He seemed different. Broken almost. Linda nodded slowly. Broken can be the first step to healing. Or it can be manipulation. I looked at her sharply. She held up her hands. "I'm not saying he's manipulating you. I'm saying you need to be careful. You've given him everything once. Don't give him your peace too." Her words settled into my chest like stones. Over the next few weeks, I tried to settle into my new life. I joined a book club at the local library, started volunteering at a food bank on Tuesdays, made friends with a woman named Carol who lived across the lake. We'd meet for coffee and talk about nothing important: recipes, weather, the geese that visited every spring. It was simple, uncomplicated. No one wanted anything from me. No one was disappointed when I couldn't give more. I was just Margaret, not Michael's mother, just me. But Michael didn't disappear. He started sending letters. Not emails or texts, actual handwritten letters. The first one arrived 3 weeks after our meeting. I almost didn't open it. Let it sit on my kitchen counter for 2 days, staring at it like it might explode. Finally, Linda saw it and said, "You'll never have peace if you don't know what it says." So I opened it. The letter was short. "Mom, I'm still in therapy, 3 times a week like I said. It's hard. Harder than I thought. But I'm trying. I hope you're okay. Love, Michael." I didn't write back, but I kept the letter. The next one came 2 weeks later. This time it was longer. He wrote about his therapist, about the things they were unpacking. "She says I have abandonment issues from Dad's death, that I blamed you for not being able to fix everything, that I turned you into someone responsible for my pain." I read that line 3 times. He was starting to understand, but understanding and changing were different things. I folded the letter and put it with the first one. The third letter arrived in early December. Snow had started to fall in Vermont, covering everything in white silence. This letter was different, rawer. "Mom, I need to tell you something I've never told anyone. After Dad died, I was so angry. Not just sad, angry. At him for leaving. At you for falling apart. At God for taking him. I wanted someone to blame. And you were there. You were always there. So I blamed you for everything. For being weak. For crying. For needing me when I needed you." My hands were shaking as I kept reading. "I know now that's not fair. You were grieving too. You were alone and scared and trying to keep us both afloat. But I was 17 and I didn't understand grief. I just understood anger. And I let that anger poison everything between us. Even after I grew up, even after I should have known better, I held on to it. Because letting it go meant admitting I was wrong, and I was too proud for that. I set the letter down, wiped my eyes. This was what I'd needed to hear. But it came too late. Or did it? I thought about that for days. Linda asked me what was wrong. I showed her the letters. All 3 of them. She read them carefully, her face thoughtful. When she finished, she looked at me. He's doing the work. I know, I said. So, what are you afraid of? I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, and I just didn't want to say it out loud. I was afraid of believing him, of letting him back in, of being hurt again. Christmas came. I spent it with Linda and George and a few other neighbors. We ate too much food and played board games and laughed until our sides hurt. It was the first Christmas in years I didn't feel the weight of obligation. No expensive gifts I couldn't afford. No forced smiles over dinner. No wondering if I'd done enough. Just peace. Just presence. Just joy. That night, alone in my cottage, I looked at the small tree I'd put up, barely 3 feet tall, decorated with lights I'd bought at the dollar store, and I smiled. Michael's 4th letter arrived on New Year's Eve. This one was the hardest to read. Mom, I need to tell you about the money. The $70,000 I kept from the wedding fund. Vanessa was right. I had debts, gambling debts. I'd been betting on sports for years. Started in college, got worse after Dad died. I told myself I could stop any time, but I couldn't. By the time I met Vanessa, I owed over $60,000 to people who weren't patient about collecting. My stomach turned. Gambling. All this time, and I'd never known. He continued, I thought if I could just win one big bet, I could pay it off and no one would know. But I kept losing, and the debt kept growing. When Vanessa's family pulled out of the wedding, I saw an opportunity. You had money. You loved me. You'd help. So I lied. I manipulated. I stole. And when you canceled the wedding, I panicked. I thought if I could sell your house, I could pay off the debt and fix everything. But Vanessa found out. She saw the betting apps on my phone, the emails from the collection agencies. She confronted me and I tried to lie, but she wouldn't let me. She called off the wedding, told me to get help or get out. So I got help. I'm in Gamblers Anonymous now. 6 meetings a week. I've been sober, that's what they call it, sober, for 3 months. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I put the letter down. My son was an addict, and I'd never known. I didn't know how to feel. Angry? Sad? Relieved that there was a reason, a disease, something beyond pure cruelty? Linda found me crying on the porch that night. She didn't ask questions, just sat with me, holding my hand, letting me feel what I needed to feel. He's sick, I finally whispered. He's been sick for years and I didn't see it. That's not your fault, Linda said firmly. Addicts are good at hiding. It's part of the disease. But I'm his mother, I said. I should have known. Linda squeezed my hand. You can't fix what you don't know is broken, and even if you'd known, you couldn't have fixed it. Only he can do that. She was right. I knew she was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. I thought about all the times I'd given him money over the years. The emergency car repair, the unexpected medical bill, the one-time help with rent. How much of that had gone to his addiction? I wrote back for the first time. Just a short note. Michael, thank you for your honesty. I'm glad you're getting help. Keep going. You deserve to be well. I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't say I wanted to see him. Just that simple acknowledgement. I mailed it the next day. When Linda asked if I was sure, I nodded. He needs to know someone believes he can change, even if I'm not ready to let him close again. She hugged me tight. You're a good mother, she whispered. Even now. January turned into February. The letters kept coming. Michael wrote about his therapy, his meetings, his slow progress. He got a new job. Something in sales. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. He moved into a small apartment alone. Started rebuilding his life piece by piece. He never asked to visit. Never pushed for more than I was willing to give. Just kept me updated, like I was a distant friend instead of the mother he'd betrayed. And somehow, that made it easier. One morning in late February, I woke up and realized something had shifted. The anger I'd carried for months, maybe years, felt lighter. Not gone, but lighter. Like I'd been carrying a boulder and someone had chipped off a corner. I couldn't explain it. I just felt it. I made coffee and sat on the porch, watching the sun rise over the lake. The ice was starting to melt. Spring was coming, and I was ready for it. That afternoon, I called the lawyer. I want to modify the trust, I said. She sounded surprised. How? I took a breath. I want to add a clause. If Michael stays in recovery for 5 years, verified by his therapist and his sponsor, he can access a portion of the funds at 40 instead of 50. Not all of it. Just enough to help him restart. The lawyer was quiet. Margaret, are you sure? After everything? I'm sure, I said. He's doing the work. That should mean something. All right, she said slowly. We'll draft the amendment. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Not hope that Michael and I would ever have the relationship we once did. That ship had sailed. But hope that he'd be okay. That he'd build a life he was proud of. That someday he'd look back and understand what he'd lost and what he'd gained by facing his demons. That was enough. In March, Michael's letters mentioned someone new, a woman named Sarah he'd met at a recovery meeting. She understands what I've been through, he wrote. She's 3 years sober from alcohol. She's kind and patient, and she doesn't judge me for my past. We're taking things slow, really slow. But Mom, for the first time in years, I feel like I might actually be okay. I smiled when I read that, folded the letter carefully, put it with the others. There were 12 now, a year's worth of growth captured in ink. Linda asked me once if I'd ever consider seeing him again. Really seeing him, not just a quick meeting in a cafe. I thought about it. Maybe, I said. Someday. When I'm ready. When will that be? She asked. I looked out at the lake. It was fully thawed now, shimmering in the spring sun. Birds were returning. Flowers were starting to bloom. Everything was waking up. I don't know, I said honestly. But I'll know when it happens. April brought my 72nd birthday. Linda threw me a surprise party. Nothing big, just a dozen people from town, a cake from the local bakery, cheap champagne in plastic cups. Carol gave a toast that made me cry. To Margaret, she said, who taught us all that it's never too late to choose yourself. Everyone clinked their glasses. I looked around at these people, strangers a year ago, family now, and felt my heart swell with something I couldn't name. That night, alone in my cottage, I got a package. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Michael. Inside was a small wooden box, hand-carved, simple, beautiful, and a note. Mom, I made this in a woodworking class I've been taking. It reminded me of you. Strong, beautiful, able to hold precious things without breaking. I don't expect you to keep it, but I wanted you to have it anyway. Happy birthday. I love you. Always have. Always will. I held that box in my hands and cried. Not sad tears, not angry ones. Just tears. The kind that come when something inside you finally lets go. I opened the box. Inside was a photo. One I'd thought was lost. Me and Michael, right after his father's funeral. We're standing in the cemetery, both of us hollow-eyed and exhausted. But my arm is around his shoulder, and his head is leaning into mine. 2 broken people holding each other up. I put the box on my nightstand, looked at it every morning when I woke up. It didn't fix anything, didn't erase the past, didn't make the hurt disappear, but it reminded me of something important. Before the lies, before the addiction, before the betrayal, there was love. Real love. The kind that survives even when everything else falls apart. And maybe, that was enough to build on. Someday, when I was ready, May arrived with warm winds and longer days. I started a garden in the small patch of yard behind my cottage. Tomatoes, lettuce, herbs. Linda helped me plant it. You know what you're doing? She asked, watching me dig. Not at all, I admitted. She laughed. Good. The best gardens come from trial and error. We worked side by side, hands in the dirt, sun on our faces. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Pure, uncomplicated contentment. Michael's letters slowed down, not because things were bad, but because they were good. He was building a life that didn't revolve around me or his past. He wrote once a month now, brief updates. Work is good. Sarah and I are still together. Therapy is hard but helpful. I'm learning to forgive myself. Slowly. I was proud of him. I didn't say it in my responses. They were still short, careful, but I felt it. My son was becoming a man his father would have been proud of. One evening in June, I was sitting on the porch when my phone rang. Michael. We hadn't spoken on the phone since that awful day before the wedding. My hand hesitated over the screen. Then I answered. Hello? Hi, Mom. His voice sounded different, steadier, calmer. I hope it's okay that I called. It's okay, I said. We were both quiet for a moment. Then he said, I don't want anything. I wanted to hear your voice. Something in my chest cracked open. How are you, Michael? I asked. And for the first time in years, I actually wanted to know. I'm okay, he said. Really okay. Better than I've been in, I don't even know how long. I heard a smile in his voice. Sarah and I are getting serious. Not engaged or anything, but serious. She wants to meet you someday, if you'd be willing. I looked out at the lake. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and pink. Someday, I said. Maybe. That's enough, he said quickly. That's more than enough. We talked for 10 minutes. Nothing deep, just surface things. His job, my garden, the weather. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, phone in my hand. Linda came by and found me like that. You okay? She asked. I nodded slowly. I think I am. She sat down beside me. He called? Yeah. And? I smiled. Small. Tentative. And maybe forgiveness isn't a moment. Maybe it's a process. July brought a heat wave. The lake became the center of everyone's life. I learned to swim again. Something I hadn't done since I was young. Linda taught me, patient and encouraging. You're doing great, she'd shout as I flailed through the water. I felt ridiculous, and free, and alive. One afternoon, I floated on my back, staring up at the endless blue sky and thought, this is what peace feels like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of joy despite it. Michael sent me a photo in August, him and Sarah, hiking somewhere beautiful. Mountains in the background, both of them grinning at the camera. She had kind eyes and laugh lines. He looked healthy, happy, really truly happy. I put the photo on my refrigerator, didn't analyze it, didn't overthink it, just let myself be glad that he was okay, that we were both okay, that we'd survived the worst and come out breathing. September marked a year since I'd left, a year since I'd canceled the wedding and driven north into the unknown. Linda insisted on celebrating. A year of freedom, she called it. We had dinner at my cottage, her, George, Carol, and a few other friends. We toasted with wine and told stories and laughed until our sides hurt. And when they left, I stood in my small living room and looked around. This life I'd built, this peace I'd fought for. It wasn't what I'd planned, but it was mine. That night, I wrote Michael a longer letter than usual. Dear Michael, it's been a year since I left. A year since everything fell apart and I had to rebuild myself from scratch. I want you to know something. I don't regret it. Not the leaving, not the canceling, not any of it. Because it forced both of us to face truths we'd been avoiding. You faced your addiction. I faced my own enabling, my own desperate need to be needed. I spent so many years defining myself by being your mother, by what I could give you, sacrifice for you, do for you. And when you rejected me, it felt like I'd lost everything. But I hadn't. I'd lost a version of myself that wasn't sustainable. And I found something better. I found me. Just Margaret. Not Michael's mother, not anyone's savior, just a woman learning to live for herself. My pen moved faster now, the words pouring out. I want you to know I'm proud of you. For getting help. For facing your demons. For doing the hard work even when it would have been easier to give up. You're becoming the man your father always believed you could be. And someday, not today, maybe not even this year, but someday, I think we'll find our way back to each other. Not as we were, but as we are. Two imperfect people who love each other despite everything. I signed it, sealed it, mailed it the next morning. His response came 2 weeks later. Just 3 words, written in shaky handwriting that told me he'd been crying when he wrote them. I love you. I held that note against my chest and let myself feel it. The love. the forgiveness, the painful, beautiful possibility of healing. It wasn't closure. It was something better. It was a door left open. Not an invitation to rush back through. Just a door. Unlocked. Waiting. October brought cooler air and changing leaves. The lake turned into a mirror of red and gold. I walked every morning, breathing in the crispness, feeling grateful for everything. The pain, the growth, the peace. Linda walked with me sometimes. We'd talk about nothing and everything. She'd become more than a friend. She'd become family. The family I'd chosen. The family that chose me back. One morning, she said, "You know what I admire about you?" I glanced at her. "What?" "You didn't just survive what your son did to you. You transformed because of it. You could have stayed bitter. You could have let it poison you, but you chose to grow instead." I felt my throat tighten. "I didn't have a choice," I said. "We always have a choice," she said gently. "That's the hardest lesson to learn." In November, Michael called again. This time Sarah was with him. "Mom, Sarah wants to say hi. Is that okay?" My heart pounded. "Okay." A new voice came on the line. Warm, gentle. "Mrs. Davidson, I've heard so much about you. I just wanted to introduce myself and say thank you." "Thank you for what?" I asked, confused. "For raising a man who's brave enough to face his mistakes. A lot of people don't, but Michael is. And I know a lot of that comes from you." I didn't know what to say. My eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for helping him," I managed. "Thank you for seeing who he can be." We talked for a few minutes. She told me about her own recovery, her own journey. When she handed the phone back to Michael, he said, "She's special, Mom." "I can tell," I said. "I'm happy for you." And I meant it. Every word. December came again. Another Christmas in Vermont. This time, Michael sent a card. Simple. Heartfelt. "Mom, I know we're not ready to spend holidays together yet. Maybe we never will be. But I want you to know you're in my thoughts today. I'm grateful for you. For everything you taught me. For letting me go so I could find myself. I hope you're surrounded by love. You deserve it. Merry Christmas." Oh. I put the card on my mantle next to the wooden box. Linda gave me a present that year. A journal. "For writing down all the ways you're brave," she said. I laughed. "I'm not brave." She gripped my hands. "You're the bravest person I know, Margaret Davidson. And it's time you started believing it." That night, I opened the journal, stared at the blank first page. Then I wrote, "Day 1 of believing I'm brave. I survived. That's enough." As the year ended, I sat on my porch wrapped in blankets, watching snow fall over the lake. The world was quiet. Still. Perfect. I thought about where I'd been a year ago. 2 years ago. How much had changed. How much I'd changed. I wasn't the desperate mother willing to buy love anymore. I was just Margaret. Whole. Complete. Belonging to myself. And that was the greatest gift I'd ever given myself. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Happy New Year, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when you had every right to." I stared at those words. Then I typed back, "Happy New Year, sweetheart. Thank you for not giving up on yourself." I hit send, and then I smiled. Because maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. Both of us. In our own ways. In our own time. The snow kept falling. The lake kept shimmering. And I kept breathing. One day at a time. One moment at a time. Choosing peace over pain. Choosing myself over obligation. Choosing hope over bitterness. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was better. It was real. And it was mine. Have you ever had to choose between the family you love and the peace you need? It's the hardest choice I ever made. But sitting here now, watching the sunrise over this lake, I can tell you it was worth it. Not because everything turned out perfect. It didn't. But because I learned something I'd never known before. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. If this story touched your heart, if you've been through something similar, leave me a comment. Tell me where you're listening from. I read every single one. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about finding yourself when you thought everything was lost, subscribe. I'd love to have you along for the journey. Until next time, remember, you're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to start over. No matter how old you are. No matter how long you've been stuck. It's never too late to become who you were always meant to be.